I spent some time with Seth. He turned me on to the latest version of PowerPoint using Office 365. Man, the things you can do in here are absolutely amazing. You really don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on video and things. What he showed me in an hour just blew my mind.
He's really smart. We actually did a really quick training on the Pixel because everybody was asking where to put it. They didn't understand. I couldn't find it for some reason. It was one of those brain fart moments. I'm like, I can't find it. And so we did a really quick video. He's a smart cookie, I'll say that.
Very much so.
Alrighty, guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to remember to do the recording right now. I'll do a quick intro, and then we're off because we're live on Facebook, and they're used to this. Woohoo! Hello, everybody. Today, are you ready for the mighty Pixel with Cody? I'm going to let him introduce himself. We got tons of messages coming in the chat. This is for everybody, whether you're a beginner, don't even know what a pixel is, or you've had a little experience with it. He's not going through the presentation that fast, guys.
No, I was on the wrong screen.
You're like, holy buckets, Batman. I mean, what did they do? Put it on super speed? So if you don't know who I am, I'm Brenny Larson. I'm the host and creator of the Builderall Mastery Summit. And my buddy Jermaine Freeman, he built the funnel and got our domain name and does email sequencing and our beautiful banner. So I definitely want to give a shout out to him also. And today, Cody's going to tell you about this wonderful mighty Pixel and how it can change your business, which will change your life. So Cody, I'm going to zip out of here and let you take it away.
Sounds good, Brenny. And again, if a question comes up and I'm not paying attention to the chat window, feel free to interrupt me. Again, I'll stick around afterward for any questions. So today we're talking about the mighty Pixel. Today is purely educational. I won't be selling or making any offers. This is basically just to get people up to speed with the Pixel and why it's so important. So with that, let's launch into it. And I'm just going to spend a minute here telling you a little bit about myself. Not that I'm all that wonderful, but just that I've been in the business for about 17 years. I've made a lot of the mistakes that many of you either have made or will make in the future, I promise you. So again, not any smarter than anyone else. I've just made the mistakes already. That's the only difference between you and I. So again, my name is Cody Flannagan. I'm the CEO of my own company, iRazor Strategies. I used to be the CEO of a large online marketing company in Wisconsin, which was sold to yet a larger company where I served as the director of online marketing for about 6 years. So you'll notice that a lot of the clients that I used to work with, American Girl, Aaron's Corporation, Green Bay Packers, U.S. Oil, Time Warner Cable, Bergstrom, Nimshoff, Manitowoc, a lot of these were Wisconsin companies. And I've since wised up and decided to leave the north for a warmer climate. So now I live outside of Atlanta. So you'll see that a lot of these are old Wisconsin companies. And I really specialize in website development, content management, e-commerce, SEO, PPC, email marketing, social media, and web analytics. And honestly, folks, I'm fairly new to social media. I had hoped that I would be rich and retire by now before I had to add that to everything else that I'd already learned. So honestly, I'm not all that great with Facebook. I'm learning it quickly. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that know Facebook better than I do. I have a very broad knowledge in online marketing technologies in general. But Facebook is actually fairly new to me. So I'm cutting my teeth as well. So again, having a group of people out there that know things I don't know, I think is a fantastic thing. I also have a number of certifications, Microsoft certified, Google certified. I'm a member of a number of online marketing groups. I've been to the Google campus back in, in 2005, I think. So I go to the Search Engine Strategies Conference pretty frequently as well. So enough about how wonderful I am. Let's launch right into it. And here we go.
Just real quick, I'm a Facebook geek.
Okay. So all right, you're going to be my new best friend now. Yeah, you'll be my new best friend.
That's great.
Here's a little bit more about me. This is my cockpit. This is where I work. I'm sitting right now. As you can see, I have 3 screens. And for those of you who are new to this, do yourself a favor, get at least a second screen. I have 3, which I'm constantly using, and I wonder how many of you out there have 23 website tabs and your email and Photoshop and your video editor and Facebook and YouTube open all at the same time. Trust me when I tell you, getting at least a second monitor it will improve your multitasking abilities and your ability to be more efficient. So, hey, monitors are cheap these days. Your video card probably supports it. So go at least get a second monitor. Trust me, you'll thank me for it. Once you go there, though, you will never go back. So be aware of that. This is my office staff. Some of you may remember that Smokey actually started one of our first video conferences a couple weeks ago. I had stepped outside in the garage for something, left my phone on my chair. Smokey walked across and started one of our video sessions. So that's Smokey. This is Peanut. Those are my office staff. They don't work real hard, but they don't get paid much either. So that's just a little bit about my situation. And one thing I think is interesting in presentations is always to mention something that people don't know about you. By day, I'm an online marketing professional, but at night, I'm an evil genius. I actually have a number of toys that I play with. This is one of my 3D printing projects here. I'm also into 3D modeling. I fly quadcopters and helicopters. I built my own CO2 laser, CNC machine. I have all of that out in my garage. So when I'm not doing online marketing, that's what I'm doing. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to talk today about the mighty Pixel. So a lot of us have heard of the Pixel. We may or may not understand what it is or what it does. So what we're actually going to do today is we're actually going to see one. But before we do that, let's start out with our common goal. Everyone is here because we want to acquire more customers, right? But not just any customer. We want to acquire customers that are a perfect fit for whatever product or service that we're selling. And to do that effectively, if you've done any kind of reading at all on customer acquisition, to acquire more customers, and especially the right customers, to do that, we have to understand them. And the Pixel is a great way to do that. And we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide. Why do I need to know this information? You may be realizing by now when you first heard, and Builderall may be your first experience with online marketing. As someone who's been in this industry for a long time, it is absolutely a fantastic tool for what it's used for. But there's a lot of things to learn. And this is one of my favorite sayings. There are only 10 types of people in the world, those who understand binary and those who don't. So if you actually understand what that means, it means you're probably a real geek or a propeller head like I am. And when you first started, you probably thought, well, gee, this whole online marketing thing with Builderall, I watched a couple of videos and I saw them slap together a website in 5 minutes. This is going to be easy. Well, if you've been into this for a little while, you know it's not entirely that easy because there are so many different disciplines that we have to learn. So even though you give someone a paintbrush, that doesn't make them an artist. Well, you could think of Builderall as the paintbrush. But how do you use this tool effectively? Well, think about some of the skills that we have to learn. We have to learn copywriting. We have to learn video editing in some cases, how to develop the proper funnel. We've learned things like click-through rate. We may have learned how to use Photoshop or other imaging editing software. We've learned about demographics and psychographics. We've learned about SEO and pay-per-click. We've learned about email marketing through MailBoss or MailChimp or one of the other email service providers. We've learned about web design. We've had to learn about domains and DNS servers, analytics, design, conversions, how to build responsive websites. What is an impression versus a click versus a conversion? So if you think about it, there's an awful lot of disciplines that we have to learn. And you're probably thinking to yourself, gee, this stuff seems awfully geeky. Why do I need to know this? So let's go ahead and launch into the reasons for that. And the truth is, again, I've been at this for a long time. If you want to be a professional internet marketer, you really have to have at least a basic understanding of internet technologies. And that's what we're going to cover today. I promise not to get overly geeky. If you'll just push through this, I promise we'll make it easy to understand. And the other thing is, folks, you don't necessarily have to remember all of this. As long as you understand the basic concepts, you'll understand why the Pixel is so powerful and why you need to understand how to use it appropriately. Okay, let's move on. So what the heck is a pixel? Well, a pixel is exactly that. It's a single pixel image, and it's just about the tiniest file that you can send or receive. So when it's transmitted over the internet, it's nearly instantaneous. But it's not as big as what you see on the screen, and it's transparent. Would you like to see one? I've got one pulled up on my other screen here. I'm going to move this screen over. Hopefully this should show fine. That's a tracking pixel. See that little dot right there? That is an actual pixel. What it is a single pixel image. They're usually PNG or GIF. They're transparent, so it does display in web pages when the web page loads, but it's so small, and since it's general, I put this on black so that you can actually see it, but it's transparent. But if you were to download a web page, you could literally pick out the pixel and visualize it. You could literally save this pixel down and open this up into Photoshop and edit it just like any other image, but it's a single pixel image. Well, gee, that's not very impressive. It's like the period at the end of a sentence, right? How important can that be? Come on. Well, a tracking pixel, and folks, you'll learn as I talk that I'm not that smart. I tend to think in pictures and illustrations so that I can grasp complex subjects and bring them down to a level that I can understand it. And the best I've come up with for an illustration is a pixel is like a carrier pigeon. Its purpose is to carry information when it's requested. If you remember back in the old days, someone's saying I can't see the participants in video. You're not supposed to yet. We're not showing the other participants. Anyway, if you remember back in the olden days, but before cell phones, I'm talking way back when, before cell phones, before telegraph, before telephone, before TV, before anything else, the way that information was carried was either by horseback, or if you needed to get it really quickly, the carrier pigeon was the early version of FedEx. You could get things sent from another kingdom or another location to you very quickly. And this is a typical picture of a carrier pigeon that's got a little cylinder, and inside it might be a handwritten note. And what it does is it carries information from one place to the other. That's really, if you want to know what a pixel does, that's all you need to know. It carries information. One of the things I found in this, and I'm sure some of you already know this, and I believe I may have seen it on the forums, but because, and you'll know by the time we're done here how important it is to have the pixel, because it's so important, you're going to want to make darn sure it works. And I'm sure there's others here who have worked with this already. But if you have Chrome, and by the way, folks, just like the multi-monitor thing, if you're not using Chrome, you're really hurting yourself. Even Firefox does not perform as well as Chrome. And with Chrome, of course, there's lots of extensions and plugins that you can buy. And one of those extensions is the Facebook Pixel Helper. So with the Facebook Pixel Helper, you can have a little plugin in your browser. And to get to that, for those of you who don't know, you just click on the three little dots, you go into More Tools, Extensions, or go to the Chrome Web Store and just search on Facebook Pixel Helper, or just search on it in Google. Download this. It becomes a little button in Chrome. And what it allows you to do is to make sure that your pixel is installed and working correctly, because obviously if it's not working correctly, it doesn't do any good. So do yourself a favor. One of your to-dos after this seminar is to download the Facebook Pixel Helper. And I'm sure, again, I just learned about it. I personally know how to do that using other tools, but I'm sure there's others in the forum. We have all these folks that are professionals in this, and I'm sure it could help you. So if you have any questions. Okay, now let's get through just a little bit more geek stuff. Then I promise we're going to get to some fun stuff. Now, again, if you've been into the business for any length of time and you've done your research and your reading, as you should be, to stay on top of things, you probably heard the term client side versus server side. Well, let's simplify that. What does that mean? Well, I think of it, again, I think in terms of pictures, think of it like Starbucks. This guy's the server, this guy's the client, this gal is the client. The client is typically a PC or a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet, and that's the thing that's making requests of the server. So in our case, as far as Builderall, or any website for that matter is concerned, we have a web server whose sole job is to take these requests or orders, just like over a Starbucks counter, and say, and to provide that information. So for example, if you were to go to Amazon and say, show me every DVD player that's under $300 and it has the fast forward feature, for example. Well, as you can imagine, Amazon can't possibly come up with every combination. So those pages don't actually exist until you request them. So essentially Amazon says, okay, let's look in the database and find me everything where the product type is a DVD player, and then find me every DVD player that has the fast forward or the slow-mo feature, and then it assembles that page on the fly. Okay, so it would be just like doing kind of a find in a Excel document, find me every row that meets this criteria. You could say, okay, now of those, show me only those where the brand name is Panasonic, so on and so forth. So the server does a lot more than just serve up static HTML pages. Using database technology, it can assemble those pages on the fly. It does it nearly instantaneously, and then it provides that back to the client, which is the laptop, smartphone, or PC. Okay, do we have any questions on that? Again, we don't have to go into great detail, but just so you understand it, the client is whoever's making the request of the server is fulfilling the request, just like Starbucks. Make sense? Okay, let's keep going. So why is it important for us to understand this? Well, the reason we need to understand this is because the data that goes back and forth between your client or users that visit your website and the server, there's gold in this data. Lots of important information. Unfortunately, that data from a computer perspective looks something like this. Again, don't panic, folks. We're not going to have to dissect all this, but this is what a typical server entry might look like. It has IP addresses and all these funky characters and stuff that doesn't make any sense. But if you understand what that data is and what information you can mine from it, you can really supercharge your marketing. We're going to talk about how that's done. Is anybody else having a problem with the sound? Sylvie said the sound isn't as good. I'll move my mic a little bit closer. Okay.
I can hear you fine. Sylvie, put your earbuds in.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said I told her to put her earbuds in.
Okay. All right. Okay, so another great thing about Chrome, and yet another reason to have Chrome, is because of the Chrome Inspector. So here's what I'd like you to do if you haven't already, and don't get lost when you open Chrome. I don't want you jumping off to YouTube and start watching African safari videos. But I'd like you to open Google Chrome, and I want you to hit the F12 button. When you hit the F12 button, you're going to see the Google Inspector pop up. And again, I'm not going to get overly techie, but I think you guys will really enjoy this. The inspector, what it allows you to do is see what's happening between, in other words, it'll let you see what's happening, what's going on, the transmission and communication of what's going on between your browser, which is the client, and the web server that you're communicating with. So if you have Chrome, just take a minute. If for some reason it doesn't come up under F12, you can click on the little three dots here. And let's see, I think it's under developer tools or let's see. Yeah, just hit F12. That's what I do. It's just the easiest. It should come up. But it's called Google Inspector, and this is what many developers and professionals use to see what's going on behind the scenes. And you're going to see in just a minute why that's so important. Okay, so let's take a peek behind the curtain. From our perspective, since we don't see everything that's going on behind the scenes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up CNN, and I want you to see what happens. I'm going to pull my browser window back over here with Inspector loaded up on the bottom. Okay, and I just have the standard settings here. And I'm going to open CNN, and I want you to watch this screen down below here so you see exactly what's happening when you pull up a website. Now take a look at this. You see that? It's still loading, still loading. All of this communication is happening between the client and the server right now. Everybody see that? Now, once we get into this, you can actually say, hey, I don't want to see everything. I just want to see any JavaScript that communications that are going back and forth, or I just want to see any CSS styling, or I just want to see any images or media or fonts. So for example, if CNN is using a font that we don't have in our computer, they embed the font, and that allows us to display the font exactly the way CNN wants us to see it. So just be aware that there's an awful lot of things going on behind the scenes when you load up CNN. Okay.
Hey, Cody,
yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you a quick question? They're asking, what do you do on a Mac?
I don't know. I'm not a Mac user. There's probably the equivalent though. Even Firefox has something similar to this. You may have to do some research. And if someone does find it, personally, I think all Mac users should be put on an island in the South Pacific away from normal people. That's my own personal opinion. But if you insist on working with a Mac, I'm sure there's something similar out there. And if someone finds it, if you want to post it on the forums or on the Builderall Mastery Summit page, that would be great resources for other people. So if you want to do that, we'd appreciate it. So
it's in chat, they found it. So I'll make sure we do it after the after party.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. So Okay, so let's go back over here and let's take a look at some of this data. Okay, and again, this is not something that you have to remember every detail, folks, but it helps to explain what's happening behind the scene and why things are so important as far as understanding how that communication is happening. I'd like you to see, again, this is all of the data that transpired between my computer and just loading a single CNN web page. And if I go to another web page, you'll see very much the same thing in here. So what I can do is I can go in here and say, hey, just show me the image requests. Okay, and if we go into the image request, let me see if I can find one. I'm trying to find one that might be more. Okay, here we go. Let me just make sure I've got that right. I should have had one of these loaded up here. Oh, let's see. I'm trying to find one. Let's see, pixel.gif. Okay, here's an example. So you remember we talked about the carrier pigeon before, right? And this pixel is a very tiny piece of information. And when you make the request of the server says, hey, I've got this pixel and I'm going to deliver this pixel back to you. And it's going to be capturing information about you as you surf around the web. And again, we'll talk about that more in just a minute. But here you get an idea. See this pixel.gif? Look how long those lines are. And if we look at some of the other information that's I wonder if I can just type in pixel here and get just those that say pixel. Here we go. Okay, so you can see here's one pixel request. Look how long that line is. Do you see that? That pixel request, even though we're on CNN, it is actually making the request of moteads.com. Okay, and here's another one for Mote Ads. Here's another one, px.moteads, and so on and so forth. So that's probably one of the tracking providers that they're using. See if we can find a different one. That's Mote Ads. Here's one from Beacon. And what I'm looking at, every time I move my mouse, it goes away. But look at the very top left corner of that pop-up box, and you can see where it's making the request from for the pixel. And you can see all that information that's being carried along with it, right? Here's Amplify Pixel, here's another pixel, so on and so forth. And these are all GET requests. They say, hey, give me this pixel, but along the way, pass this information. Okay, so let's go into this here. So again, you remember that long string of text and you just saw some examples of that? Well, again, you don't have to remember all that, just understand what it does. So things that you can find out with the pixel is, for example, and there are other methods. I'm really oversimplifying this, folks, but again, you don't have to know the details, just understand the fundamentals and you'll be well ahead. So some of the things that we can get from that pixel that passes back and forth between the browser and the server is things like the referring website, the user agent, a cookie ID, the host IP address, a username if that's appropriate, if you're logged in, the date and time of the request, the request line itself, the status code, bytes, so on and so forth. Okay, again, let's not spend a lot of time. Let's not spend a lot of time on that. Let's go down to the next slide here. Okay, and here's another example for those of you who use Google Analytics. And remember, the tracking pixel has been along way before Facebook. The tracking pixel has been in use for many, many years, almost since just after I started in the business. And in this gray box here is a typical example of what, whoops, it looks like it, there we go. Here's a typical example of one of those strings that we just saw when I loaded up CNN, and it looks like gobbledygook, right? How could anybody make any sense of that? Well, there's actually, from a computer perspective, it makes a lot of sense. You can notice this first request that says, hey, I'm making an HTTP request to google-analytics.com for this _UTM GIF. That's the file I want. Okay, I just want that little 1 pixel GIF. But I'd also like to pass along in this request these other things, and these are called name value pairs. And they each have, you'll notice that it always has a value, like the UTM-WV. It has an equal, and then it has a value. Okay, so that's the name, that's the value. Then there's going to be a separation, an and, which says, okay, I'm about to send you another name value pair, and I'm going to send UTMN equals this number. Another and, so on and so forth. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so the HTTP googleanalytics.com _UTM.gif, that's the file we're requesting. But the information we're sending along, and you don't have to, again, you don't have to remember these, but for example, the UTM-WV equals 4, that's the Google tracking code version. The next name value pair is the pixel ID. That's like a unique identifier. The host name, and in this case, this is just something I made up, would be example.com. But look at some of these other cool things you can get. UTMSR equals 1280 by 1024. That's my screen resolution. Now, again, this is recorded. I actually, I just took a snapshot here. This isn't actually my data. How many screen colors do I have? Now, today, this is not a big deal, but back in the early days, folks, when we were working with, 15-inch or 12-inch screens, and we didn't necessarily have millions of colors of video cards, we can use this to say, hey, this user only has a 12-inch screen, or this user can only display 16-bit colors, or so on and so forth. Look at some of the others, and again, we don't have to go through all of them, but this says my default browser language is English.us. Now, if that popped up English.Spanish, for example, or English.Russian, you can see where you could build logic into your website if it were appropriate for your situation. Say, hey, this guy's language is in Russian, so instead of him having to click a button, let's just switch over to our Russian version. Other things like Java enabled. Is Java enabled on the computer? Back in the day, Flash and knowing what Flash version they had was very important. Campaign sessions, page titles, AdSense ID, page requests, source, campaign name, keywords, cookie data. All of this information is passed along in a string, and the pixel is the carrier. The pixel is the carrier pigeon that just carries that information back, and that's really its sole purpose. Does anybody have any questions on that? Does that make sense so far? Yeah, geek made simple. Thank you. That's exactly me. I'm not smart enough to be tricky, so I have to make it simple. Okay, so what do we know? With this information, we know things such as the referring website, your IP address, unless you're using a VPN. We know your browser information, what type of device you have. Now, again, back in the early days, we were pretty much working just with computers. We didn't have tablets yet. We didn't have smartphones. So the device type now, of course, is much more important. In Builderall, as you know, you have the ability to build tablet versions, desktop versions, and screen versions. Well, how does that work? We essentially have 3 versions, and when it passes that parameter, it says, hey, this guy's on an iPad, so show him the iPad or the tablet. I use the word iPad, I mean tablet. Or this gal is on a phone, so let's send her the phone version, okay? So all of that information is passed along, and that's how Builderall knows which version to send out. It also passes other generic information like date, time of request. If someone's logged in, it'll pass username. It might pass cookie information, screen resolution, operating system. Are they on a Mac or a PC? Keywords they've used to search to find your site, product codes in the event of like an e-commerce site, so on and so forth. And this data is good, okay? It gives us kind of a vague picture of our visitor, but we really don't know anything in detail about them. For example, we don't know yet their name or their email. We don't know their gender, their income, their interest, their geography, their ethnicity, their hobbies, what sports they like, how tech savvy they are. Are they the baby boomer generation or the X generation? Are they into fitness and health? Are they a Democrat or Republican? These are all things that we just don't know, right? This is all generic data that's passed about basically our computer system. But guess who does know? Ta-da! This is where it all comes together. Yeah, we want to convert this data to information. And that's what a lot of the analytics for Facebook and specifically Google Analytics, which again, they all pretty much work the same, folks. When you think about analytics and pixels, think about Ford versus Chevy versus Toyota. And I see we've got some questions pop up. Please keep those questions and we will get to them. I'm kind of in the zone here and I don't want to get sideways, but I promise we'll come back to you, Mohammed. Okay, so again, Facebook does know. And how did they know? Because Facebook tracks us beyond Facebook. If you recall, and I think it was in here, I'm going to pull this back here. If you recall, if I go back to CNN, okay, and I type in Facebook and I'm looking at the tracking images, do you see this? All these Facebook tracking pixels? So Facebook is tracking me beyond Facebook, okay? And it's also providing this data to CNN. So CNN says, aha, this guy, ID number, so on and so forth. We may not necessarily know who he is yet, but we're passing all kinds of information about this guy. And this is exactly how ads follow you around the internet. We're going to be talking about that in the American Girl story in just a minute. But you may wonder, gee, I ran a search on an investment magazine. Next thing you know, I go to YouTube and there's an investment ad. Well, how the heck did they know that? This is how they know that, because they're tracking you. And I'm of two minds about this, folks. On the one hand, I think it's amazing technology. And on the other hand, it scares the hell out of me how much Google and Facebook and Twitter all know about us. And of course, as you know, Facebook knows about who our friends are. They know what posts we've responded to. They know what keywords we've used. They know what photos we've posted and interests that we've shown and groups that we've joined and events that we've watched. And that's how they start to build a demographic profile. Yeah, they know more about me than I do. That's absolutely right. But we can, as marketers, as a citizen, it's a little spooky, but as a marketer, I couldn't ask for anything better, and neither can any of the rest of us. So again, the pixel is basically just, its purpose is to gather that information and to send it back to the server. Now, this is not my Facebook ID. These specs are not all correct, but just to simplify this, Facebook knows what my ID is. I said, okay, so we're just going to pretend that I'm AS09, yada, yada, yada. And I made these fields up. These are not correct, but again, I'm trying to simplify it. So just like those name value pairs, Facebook has a massive database, and it says, okay, for ID number AS09, we'll just use that. I have a field called FB for Facebook, F name for first name, which is Cody, the name and value pair. Last name is Flannagan. His age is 52. Oh, by the way, they know my birthday, so they know when I'm now 53 or 60 and eligible for retirement, whatever. They know my gender. I don't make $1 million a year, but I thought it would be fun to put that up there. They know what sports I like. They know what music. They know that I'm a Caucasian. They know that I live in Georgia, that my language is English. Everybody following me there? Okay, so this is extremely basic, but think about how much information they know about us, and the same information that we use to find the right people if we're selling a particular product. And we're going to actually do some live examples as kind of a little test here in just a minute. Okay, so I don't know if any of you have this. I actually downloaded this from Nicholas Kasimich website. But just to give you an idea, and we could spend all day in this. Yeah, it's scary, fantastic. Just to give you an idea of the different ways. Now, probably all of us have been into the ad manager, and you can see where you can target ads to this and that. But let me give you a bird's eye picture. And I've got about 5 slides here. We're just going to spend a minute on this to give you an idea how much information Facebook may have. Now, in some cases, they may not have it. For example, if you decide not to enter your phone number on the website, they may not have your phone number. They may, but most of the time they know our geography and so on and so forth. But just take a look at some of these things. So under location, your region, oh, stop it. Somebody's calling me from India. Your region, your country, your address, market area, what airport you're near, people who live in this location, so on and so forth. Home ownership, first-time homeowners, renters, new parents, veterans in home, working women, apartments, condos, so on and so forth. Work, office type, home office, small business, administrative, so they may know what kind of careers we have, employers, job title, languages, of course, parents. I'm going to switch to the next screen. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. They know things about our education level. You remember when you fill out your profile, one of the things it asks you, oh, thanks for the link. Folks, check out the link in the chat box so you can download that. This is a really handy thing to have. I actually have one printed out so I can refer to it when I'm setting up an ad and say, okay, which of these things are important for this particular offer or product or service that I'm selling. So again, they know things about our education. You know, are we high school graduate? Are we a college grad? Do we have master's, doctorates? They know about, in many cases, about our finance, how much money we make, ethnic affinity, politics, conservative, liberal, moderate, you know, so on and so forth. Relationships, for those that are looking for a significant other, are interested in men or women, single, in a relationship, currently married, engaged, divorced, widowed, so on and so forth. Generational information, are you a baby boomer, a millennial, a Generation Xer, gender, life events, age, friends of, other connections, and I'm just going to, again, keep whipping through this. Hobbies and activities. You know how a lot of times you'll put, well, of course they can tell if you like the page of the Rolling Stones, for example. Okay, you're sharing information about yourself, all of which we as marketers can use to rifle in on our marketing. So you can see hobbies and activities. And again, I won't go spend a lot of time on this. Our choice of entertainment, business and industry, technology, sports and outdoors, shopping and fashion, food and drink. That's on the next page here. Fitness and wellness, family relationships. Then we have other things like website traffic or people who visited a certain web page, customer file information, their engagement on Facebook. We have lookalike audience and so on and so forth. And then we have behaviors as well. automotive? Do they own a motorcycle? Or do they own a family sedan? Do they own a minivan? Do they own a convertible? Financial information, travel information. Are they a mobile device user? If so, which device? Purchase behavior, digital activities, things like operating system used, average engagement, console gamers, event creators. They've got business to business information, charitable donations, expatriates, people that are from the United States that maybe live in Argentina or Mexico. There's a couple other categories here, some job role categories, residential profile, seasonal events. Isn't that amazing? Again, it's scary to know how much Facebook knows about us. And now you stitch together what Facebook knows versus what Google knows. You can see where it's, again, from a marketer, it's a dream come true, but as a private citizen, it just scares the crap out of me. Okay. So everybody get that? You understand how that works? So you can see how you can use this information when you're developing your offer or your product or your funnel to really rifle in on the kind of person that you're trying to reach out to. So let's talk a little bit about the Facebook pixel code. And I'm going to pull up a screen here in just a minute. But as you know, or those of you who don't know, there's plenty of people here that are willing to help you. Implementing Facebook pixel code is pretty straightforward. I know it looks spooky, but just remember, you don't have to know all this stuff. But this is what a typical Facebook pixel code looks like. And you can actually put different events into your Facebook pixel code so that you can track more effectively. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But this is typical Facebook pixel code. And over here are some things that we can actually insert into our pixel code for different purposes. So for example, the default pixel says, okay, every time somebody hits this, flag it as a page view. But what if you want to know, hey, they made a purchase, or this is a lead because they filled out a form, or I want to know that they added something to a cart, but maybe they didn't purchase, so that I can send an email to everyone who added to cart but didn't purchase and say, hey, were you having problems? Is there a question you have? Did you have questions about shipping or return policies? So on and so forth. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. And I already have a Facebook configuration screen up here. Let me just, well, the menu's kind of in the way. Hold on, here we go. All right, so for example, Brittany, can you see this okay? Is that showing up?
Beautiful.
Okay. So when you go into your Facebook pixel, and here's Cody Flannagan's pixel, you can also add events. For example, these are some of the special events that you can add into your pixel code. You can type in, you can include purchase, lead generation, complete registration, add payment info, add to cart, add to wish list. And believe me, folks, especially if you're into e-commerce, knowing where people bail out of the conversion funnel is extremely important. You can add to wish list. They initiated checkout. They ran a search. They viewed content. And when you turn these on, what Facebook does is it gives you the code. And I don't know if you knew this, but these are not the only codes that you can use. You can actually create your own. But what it's saying is, hey, if I want to add this add to wish list, okay, I have a screen, and maybe your funnel doesn't have that. It doesn't matter. But you can actually create any number of event types. These are just some of the more common, but you can actually create your own. And if you go into this screen, into the ad manager, or actually it's under the events manager now, you can see how this works. And there's other instructions that show you how to add. Someone had asked, what if the event types were not are not in my default pixel? What if I want, hey, this person, I don't know, this person clicked on the left button instead of the right button? Well, if you have code in there, you can actually track that, okay? So as you can see, you can turn on all these event parameters, and all you're really doing, notice that this beginning and end script tags, if we go back to here, all Facebook pixel code and all JavaScript, in fact, starts with a beginning script tag and an end script tag, okay? All we're doing is adding this line of text in here. So for example, if I bounce back here, and let's say I wanted to put that add to wish list into my code, where did I put it now? Add payment info, add a wish list down here. You just click on this, okay, and now that's just text, okay, and then essentially all I would do is take my Facebook code and either add it to this, and you can have multiple events in one page. So you may say, hey, I want this to show as a page view, but I also want to know that this page view is the page that they see after they give me their email address. So I'm going to consider that a subscription or whatever. So you can actually add these however you want to. Everybody make sense? Make sense of that? So again, don't get lost in the details. Just understand the fundamentals of how that works. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to open this up. I don't know that we need to turn on the microphone, but I want to try to wrap this up into something that we can make sense of. So I've got a couple challenges for you. And let's just use the chat window here, or if somebody wants to speak by voice, Brittany, you can manage that. But using what we've just learned, I have a storyline for you. We want to sell a high-end fitness product to up-and-coming business professionals, specifically in metropolitan areas. Our distributor only has resale rights to the Northeastern United States. Our product is an iOS or Apple-only wearable product that has the ability to communicate in real time with other family members. So using kind of this high-level view of those demographic traits that Facebook knows, what are some of the things in here that we would be interested in using to target this person? Let's just type it into the box. So is the location important? Home type, occupation, language, parents? Which of these is important? Okay, obviously mobile iOS devices. Come on, people, get with the program. Wake up now. What else is important based on the profile? Geography, exactly. Okay, language, family, because it's a family thing. Activities, fitness and wellness, right? Okay, you get the idea, right? We don't have to belabor this. Let's move on to the next one. But you get the idea. If we know what our product is, we need to know, and this goes back to where we started, we really need to know our customers. The better we know our customers, right? If they're not a family household, then why would this product be of interest to them? If they're not a metropolitan area, if they're not in the geography, remember, one of the things I said is we can only sell to the northeastern United States, so whatever the states that makes up, we would want to target our marketing there because we can't sell out of that. Know your avatar. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Chrissy. Okay, let's go to challenge number 2. Sell me something. This person has visited the following websites in the last 2 weeks: Maxim.com, E-Trade, AARP, Harley Davidson, and CEO Magazine and Democrats.org. Let's just start with that. What can you tell me about this person without knowing anything else about them? They visited the following websites: Maxim, E-Trade, AARP, Harley Davidson, CEO Magazine, and Democrats.org. Okay, age, very good. Educated, he likes motorcycles. If he likes Harleys, what generation do you think he probably belongs to? Is he a Gen Xer? Okay, boomers, Gen Xers, there you go. Donkey lover, okay, excellent. Now let's go on to the next part here. We know that the server log shows his IP address is 5.62.59.53. What does that tell me? Anybody tell me what I can do with that? Let me show you. Okay, I'm going to pull over this site. This is not my IP address, just in case there's any hackers out there. This is one of many websites out there called My Browser Info. And you can use sites like this to actually determine, okay, this person, and that's, I don't think I put the same IP address. No, I didn't put the same IP address. But using tools like this and using analytics, for example, Google Analytics will automatically take that information and translate it into region. But look at all the information you get. This is My Browser Info. This has nothing to do with Builderall or Facebook or anything else. This is a website that you can go to. If you go to mybrowserinfo.com, it's going to pull up some basic information. There's a link for detailed information. I want you to look at how much information they know about me just from hitting this page one time. Okay, yeah, like who is, for example. My Browser Info, they know my operating system, my platform, my browser, my connection speed. So you could use things like connection speed, say, hey, I'm targeting somebody in a third world country. They do not have broadband. Let's not put a 4K 20-hour video out there. Okay, so you can see where you can use this information. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but look how much information, just generic, basic information that they know about me from one hit to this webpage. See that? Okay, so that's mybrowserinfo.com. You can also use, I'm going to shut this down. You can also use, let's see, you can also use something like IP Location Finder. IPlocation.net. A lot of you have probably used a what is my IP, so on and so forth. But you can use things like this to find out where a location is. But again, Facebook, Analytics, which I'm not real familiar with. I'm very familiar with Google Analytics, but it automatically puts that information, it automatically resolves it for me. So again, computers think in terms of gigabytes and megahertz and zeros and ones. We as humans, we don't do well with rows and columns of information, but we're great with graphics, right? That makes sense. So you can use, there's all kinds of services like this. There's Whois information server, all kinds of advanced things. And I'm going to show you a couple other examples here in just a minute where we can find out information like this. Okay. All right, let's go on to challenge number 3. By the way, you noticed in here, it knows that has an iPad and so on and so forth. Challenge number 3. What are the top 3 states to sell women's ice skates in? Can anybody tell me? And I don't mean a guess. How do you actually know? How would you find this out, this information out? Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at another example. So as you can see, we're not really talking about Builderall. We're talking about just general information. Have you ever been on Google Trends? This is fantastic. Okay, if we go to Google Trends, I'm just going to start from the top here. And let's say I'm selling ice skates. Okay, ice skates. Where do I want to sell ice skates at? Okay, we're not going to look worldwide, although I can. We're going to look just in the United States. Okay, so I'm going to drill into the United States here. I can see interest over time, and I can also see the top states where, now this is based off search information. Okay, so for example, there's obviously, I'm guessing Texas is probably not going to be on here, although they probably have some ice skating arenas. But take a look at this: Maine, Alaska, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Minnesota. Here's some other related topics that people are interested in. So based on this above chart, so let's have some answers in there. Again, the question was, what are the top 3 states to sell women's ice skates in? And when would you start your marketing campaign based off of this page? Let's get some answers here. What are the top 3 states? Minnesota would be number 1, right? Alaska, Maine, right. Okay, and what time based off this interest over time? And just so you know, you can actually go back further in time. Now, Google Trends, unless there's enough data, they won't necessarily have data. So if you were into left-handed midget mud wrestling, for example, you may not find, no offense to little people, but my point is oftentimes you'll run a search in this and you may not find a lot of data, but as you can see, this will tell you when people start expressing interest, which of course is not exactly at the peak of the season. People start doing it ahead of time. Oh, we have someone from Minnesota. Get out of there, please, as soon as possible. Okay, so again, you can drill down into this into even more specific information. So again, we're at the United States level. Let me back up to here, and let's drill into United States again, and let's drill into Maine. And I can continue to drill down Portland, Auburn. That's the metro area. Okay, so if you're doing, and you can see as you get more detail, you start losing data. But just having this information is fantastic because you can actually see. What did you say? Muted gentleman? Muted Englishman? I have no idea what that is. But if you go to Google Trends, you can find that. And one of the other cool things you can do now, since we have a tool like Builderall where we can respond to marketing conditions very, very quickly, such as, not that I would do this, but let's say, for example, as you know, we had a Hurricane Irma, and we know that's coming ahead of time, right? And you can go on Google and you can find out what are some of the top searches. As you know, we're coming up on Halloween. Do you think now might be a good time to start offering whatever Halloween things, or actually we're past it, aren't we? I'm not a parent, so I don't keep up with that sort of thing. But you can look at stories trending now, and oftentimes you can come up with information like, hey, this particular thing has happened that's a major world event. Obviously, people are showing a lot of interest in that. Is there a product or service or some information that I can provide around this changing market trend or this changing market condition? So mark this down as one of your favorite things, Google Trends. Extremely helpful, but just be aware you may or may not find a lot of information depending on how sub-niche your niche is. Okay? All right, so let's move on. One of the other things that you may have noticed, and when we visited the CNN site, is, and we all have heard of cookies, you may not know what they are, but a cookie is pretty much a persistent piece of information. You can actually view cookies as well with this Chrome plugin. So if you want to see what information is being dropped on your computer, I'm going to give you another example of that. We're going to open Google again, and let's go to, let's see, I'm going to pop up my inspector again. Now, when you install this plugin, the Edit This Cookie, again, Chrome plugin, what it does is it adds it into, and I don't know why Chrome didn't do this in Explorer to begin with. It has an Edit This Cookie link that shows up here. So let's go to Microsoft. And I'm just picking sites at random here, folks. You can see all these things loading up, okay, just like before, tracking pixels, images, text, frames, video, so on and so forth. I'm currently looking at images only, and we can go to all, or I can drill into that. But let's take a look.
This is still F12. This is how you're getting it.
F12, that's correct.
Got
but you won't see the Edit This Cookie until you actually install that browser. But if I go into Edit This Cookie, now this is information that's residing on your hard drive. So for example, again, how does the website recognize me? Because it could be, any number of computers hitting the same web page. How does it recognize me? And that's because that cookie also contains name value pairs. And oftentimes these are specific to the company that's using them. So I don't, with some research, I could probably find out what they are. But this information is stored in an encrypted file on your computer. So the page loads, it says, hey, do you have a cookie for me? It says, sure enough, I have a Microsoft cookie. Well, let's open that bad boy up and see what we can find out about you. And again, a lot of people, yes, will clear their cache, or they'll block cookies because they don't want people to know, what they're, they want to keep this information private. So as marketers, we love it when people don't block their cookies, but as private individuals, we might be concerned about that. So as you can see, some cookies are session only, meaning that cookie only exists for this session. Others stay on your computer for a period of time and they may expire. So the cookies and the pixels work together. It's very much a match made in heaven to collect information and to provide information to the website when the page loads. And again, I don't want to get off topic, but I just wanted to show you that this is another cool tool, totally free. You probably already have Chrome Inspector. Download the Edit This Cookie, and if you're a geek like me, you can really understand that. Yes, they do in essence communicate. The pixel is kind of the hey, this is me, and then the server can pull back information that is stored on your computer from past visits. So for example, and you know what, and we're not even going to talk about it now because I'm going to share a storyline with you that I think is going to stitch it all together. So your second to do is after this session, add the Edit This Cookie or a similar one to your Chrome browser. Okay, so I've always thought, again, I think in terms of pictures, I've always thought that online marketing or any form of marketing really is just like fishing. Before we go out fishing for the day, the first thing we need to know is what kind of fish are we looking for, right? Are we doing deep sea fishing? Are we looking for bass or bluegill or whatever the case, walleye or pike? Yes, thank you. I can tell we've got some northerners in here. But we can't be effective until we know what kind of fish we're looking for. So we need to know things like we need to use the right bait. Does this fish like worms or do they like spinners? And from my perspective, that's things like appropriate keywords, offers and incentives, appropriate copy and design. If you're a bank site, having hot pink as your primary color, probably not a good idea. So again, understanding your audience, going back to where we first started, understanding your audience is the most important thing to making sure that your website and your offers are very specific to that audience. Not only do we need to use the right bait, we need to fish in the right spot. So where do these people hang out? Of course, now we have Facebook, but back in the day, it wasn't that easy. But they often, if you're a car enthusiast, if we know that they are a BMW driver, which I am, then you may go to Bimmer forums or something like that. Know about other online communities. You want to know your competitors' tactics. So is it appropriate to use search or pay-per-click or banner ads or email or Facebook, so on and so forth. As we talked about with the ice skates just a minute ago, we also need to fish at the right time, which might be seasonality or day of week, time of day, based on market conditions. And then make sure you reel them in. And folks, this is one of the things that I've learned through a hard lesson over many years. As you know, many people, when they first come to your website or your offer, it's a lot like buying a car. And how many of you have gone to buy a car and you drive onto a car lot and the first thing you go to do, a car salesman comes sprinting out and you're like, hey, man, I just want to look. I don't even want to talk to a salesman right now. I just want to be able to look around and I don't want to be bothered, right? Well, this whole funnel conversion thing is very much like that, or I think of it like a first date. What if you went on a first date and your date said, you got any communicable diseases, and how much are you pulling down these days, and what kind of car do you drive, and are your parents rich? If you were to ask that information on the first date, they would run away, right? Okay, so all we need to continue to build that relationship is an email address. And I'm a firm believer in make it very, very easy. Now, if you want to offer optional things that people can add in, like their address, so on and so forth, but on a lead form, don't make it required unless there's a specific a specific purpose. Just ask for the minimal amount of information you need. Make it easy, make it quick, and allow them to get to know you before they tell you how much money they're making or where they live or if their parents are rich and so on and so forth. Low resistance, excellent. So make that very simple for them to do. Also give them maybe alternatives. Again, people oftentimes at the top edge of the funnel or when they're just starting to look for a product or a service, and I don't care if it's a car or a home painting service or a laundry service or whatever, they may not be ready to say yes, but they're not necessarily ready to say no either. So give them a maybe alternative. Okay, you're not ready to buy, we understand, but we don't want you to leave. Why don't you do this instead? Okay, so think about maybe alternatives, like giving away a free, hey, top 10 tips list for how to walk your dog most effectively. I'm just using that term. But before you go, give them something, and all we're trying to do is get that email address. We can always build out their profile later. Make sense to everybody? So don't get too personal too quickly. Make sure you have relevant offers and incentives, calls to action, planned conversion funnels, and compelling stories and illustrations. We've all been reading a lot lately, and I've always believed this, that telling a story is the most effective way to sell anything. So tell stories, make it simple, make it easy for people to understand complex subjects. Okay. So today's, we're almost done here, and then again, we'll stick around. Today's what I call next generation websites, and I've pretty much been through all the way since Mozilla way back in the day, and what was the first browser name? Somebody help me. The browser from, it was before Microsoft. The names escaped me. The first browser that came out. Anyway, I've been around since back then. No, even before Safari. But today we build sites that are built around conversion funnels. Netscape. Thank you, Gene. Yes, Netscape. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. Gene's been around for a while, if she knows about Netscape. Or he, Gene C. Jacques. Okay. Sorry, Gene. It doesn't say gender here in the screen. See, but if you were on Facebook and landed on my page, I'd know that. Okay. So today we're building funnels. Now, this funnel concept has been around for a long time, but we've never had tools like, dare I say it, ClickFunnels or Builderall, and you can be sure there's going to be others coming along. But we've always known that having a planned conversion funnel was the way to go. So fourth generations are built around one or several predetermined conversion funnels where visitors are immediately engaged. They're segmented because not all visitors are the same. They're driven down the appropriate conversion path. And then web analytics help us to determine how we can tune that performance. If we see that 90% of our visitors have added something to cart and then bailed out, why is that? Well, because our return policy is unclear or whatever the case may be. Okay, let's take that a little further here. Now let's wrap this back up into the pixel. As we talked about before, you can create any number of special pixels. Here's an example. Let's say, and we're going to just use e-commerce because it really accommodates the funnel concept really well. You've got people that land on the home page, people that go into a specific category, people that run a keyword search, people that visit a product page after they found what they're looking for. They add something to the shopping cart, they then check out, and now they're a customer. So you can see, and I just made these up on the right, folks, but I think you get the idea. So landing on the home page, that may be the pixel value. And again, if we bounce back to, well, I'll go back to it in a minute. That pixel value that we encode into our Facebook code could say this is a landing page view. This is the first page they viewed. Then on the next page, we have code. And by the way, and when you get into these event types, you're not using the same pixel code for every page on your site. So keep that in mind. If you want to track one page as a conversion page or whatever, these do have to be unique. But you can see where you can create all these pixel values so that you could later on go back and say, hey, show me every product page view that I've had in the last 30 days. Show me every add to cart action that's taken place in the last 30 days. Show me all the purchases completed. So again, without the pixel, none of this is possible. This is what makes it possible to collect that information. Make sense, everyone? Yes, you can do abandoned cart. Yes, you can. Now, I've never done that specifically in Facebook, but I've worked with some, this next story that I'm going to tell you about, I've worked with some companies that use $1 million systems that can do some pretty amazing, actually spooky stuff, and we're going to cover that in just a minute. Okay, so before I launch into my American Girl story, or do we have any specific questions, Brenny? Again, I haven't been able to pay attention to the chat window. Anything specific that we need to cover at this time, or that we can discuss after?
We'll ask them at the end. You keep going with your presentation.
Okay, thanks. It's just the chat window keeps moving, and I'm trying to stay on track here. So, folks, I'm not ignoring you. I promise we'll come back around and we'll discuss this. So, so I want to tell you about a story. As I mentioned to you earlier, I used to be the director of online marketing for a rather large firm in Green Bay, and American Girl, I don't know if all of you know who they are. If you're a female, you probably do. American Girl is a division of Mattel Corporation. I'm sure everybody knows who Mattel is. And let me just for grins, let me pull up their website here. And this company is absolutely amazing. It was started by a little old lady out of her basement. And what she started doing was selling these high-end dolls, but she didn't just sell the dolls. She sold a story. She sold an experience. In other words, once you went into, you picked a specific doll, and I haven't been on the site in forever, but for example, online shop. Okay, and remember, in the background, folks, right now, there's all kinds of data whizzing back and forth, okay? Let me keep going. Okay, we go in here, and now we can go into dolls, for example, and we're going to stick with, do they still have the Molly doll? Okay, we're going to go to Felicity, okay? So when you buy into one of these dolls, and typically these are gifts, as you can see, this is not something you're going to get at Walmart. I mean, some of these dolls can be up to a couple $100s, but when you buy the doll, you're buying into the experience. You're buying an entire storyline. So this doll not only has a book and a story and videos and movies, they have their own pets, they have their own clothing, they have a backstory. Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. They have this, so you're buying an entire experience. And this little old lady who later sold out to Mattel for like umpty $1 million, she started this out of her basement. And the concept was so powerful that others have started to use that now. But this is the company that I was working for, and American Girl is one of the jewels in the crown of Mattel, because this company makes some money, and they sell to a lot of very high-end movie stars and movie producers and things like that. Okay, so this is the website that we're talking about. Okay, so I want to tell you the story. So I was engaged when I was the director of online marketing. I actually went and worked there at American Girl, and I was using some high-end analytics software called Web Trends. And this was well before Google Analytics even rolled out. It's still some of the most powerful analytics software I've ever seen. But I went to American Girl, and American Girl they are a marketing machine. These folks use everything. They use radio, television, billboards, magazines, direct mail, pay-per-click, banner ads, catalogs. They have retail storefronts. They use email marketing. They even have Molly or American Girl movies that your kids can go to and see at the theater. So when you talk about marketing, these folks are state of the art. They've got all the channels covered, and I'm sure there's a bunch that I haven't mentioned before. So I'm going to go through a story. I thought it would be easier to understand this if I put together a storyline. So I put together the storyline. Hopefully you'll see how important all this tracking and this data is. And I want you to think about this as a true storyline, as exactly how it happens, and see how American Girl puts this together, and think about how you can do this stuff for you. Okay, so scene one, Martha and Olivia. Martha, the grandmother, is in Los Angeles, and she's visiting her granddaughter, Olivia. Just has a great time. And it just so happens, did you know Martha's grandchild is the greatest grandchild ever? I don't know what it is with grandparents. I'm not a grandparent, but their baby is always the bestest and smartest and cutest and funniest of every grandbaby that's ever been born. Well, the same is true with Martha's granddaughter, Olivia. So she visits her and has a great time, and they don't talk about American Girl at all. On the way home, Martha's flying home to Chicago. Remember, her granddaughter, Olivia, is in Los Angeles. She's flying home to Chicago. And as always, you've got that in-flight magazine. And she opens the in-flight magazine. There's an ad. And again, I just made this up. I don't know for sure that American Girl advertises, but just follow the storyline. So she's sitting in this airplane for 3.5 hours. She opens the in-flight magazine. She sees something for American Girl. And she says, "This is perfect gift for my granddaughter, Olivia." Okay. Martha just became brand aware. She had never heard of American Girl. That's probably unlikely. Again, all females know about American Girl, but Martha becomes brand aware of American Girl. Okay. Scene three. After a couple of days, Martha's gotten unpacked and she remembers that in-flight ad. She stole the magazine, as most of us do, from the airplane, and she laid it next to her computer. She's gotten unpacked and got her husband fed and the dogs walked and all that. So that evening, Martha opens the ad and seeing the web address from the ad, she opens her browser and visits americangirl.com. This is the first time that she's ever interacted, other than reading the ad. This is the first time she's ever interacted with American Girl. They don't know who she is, right? And she's browsing as an anonymous user. So when we went back to the cookies and the pixels and the information, so now they're starting to build a profile, even though she's anonymous, okay? So the website records her initial, I call it a digital signature, which are all those things that we showed in the browser info. It's a combination of your IP address, your browser type, your operating system, your screen resolution. You could think of that as like a digital fingerprint, okay? And it says, we don't know who she is, so we're just going to assign her as anonymous ID number 42337, okay? So this is the first time American Girl knows Martha exists, but they don't know who she is. And the pixels and cookies are hard at work collecting the data. Okay, scene 3B. Martha spends about 30 minutes on the website during this session, and she quickly becomes overwhelmed at all the choices. But she hits the Molly doll page at least 3 times. For whatever reason, the Molly doll just really rings her bell, and she just thinks that's the greatest thing. So she hits that Molly doll page at least 3 times during her browser session, but she doesn't make a purchase. In fact, she doesn't do anything other than just browse the site. But what she does learn is that there's an American Girl retail store right in Chicago. And thanks to the tracking pixel and the cookie, all of this data is recorded into Mattel's data warehouse, which they actually call a cube or a data cube. But think of it as just a huge, massive database where this information is collected. So all of this session information, including her IP address, the pages she hit, so on and so forth, is stored in a data cube as anonymous user and basically the data cube at this point saying, okay, anonymous user 42337 really likes Molly. Okay, that's really all we know other than her IP address and browser, so on and so forth. Okay, here's where it starts to get cool. Scene 4, Martha and her posse go to town. So on Saturday, Martha calls up her posse, Gladys, Maud, and Judy, where they schedule a trip for Saturday into the city because she wants to see the American Girl store for herself. So Gladys and Maud, who surprisingly enough also have the world's most amazing granddaughters, have also just become brand aware, but they haven't even been in the store or seen an ad or visited the website. Okay, so that's scene 4. Scene 5, Martha makes a purchase. So Martha goes in here, and if you've ever been into American Girl store, and I went into one just because I was working with the company, and they really are phenomenal. If you run some searches online, their merchandising is top of the line. It's very classy, very well done. So Martha doesn't buy the Molly doll, but she does find a great book about Molly, and it's only $12. So she makes a purchase at the store. You know, she doesn't want to buy Molly yet. She's kind of warming up to this idea. And before she gives this to her granddaughter, she wants to make sure it's appropriate, which of course it is. So she makes a $12 purchase using her credit card. She also opts to have her receipt emailed to her at martha.jones@gmail.com. So her purchase info, name, email, and address is all recorded into Mattel's data cube as Martha Jones. Everybody following me so far? It's important you stay up with me. Okay. So now, if we go to the next scene, you can see what's happening. We have this data cube. We had this online data that we had gotten from anonymous user 42337, website usage, product interest, time and date, IP address. Now we have the offline data from the store, Martha's info, name, address, credit card, email. They're all, both reside in different locations, if you will, or compartments in this data cube. Are you with me? Okay. Now they match up exactly. Let's see. Scene 6. Hold on. Where was I? Okay. Let's go a little bit further. So scene 6, Martha visits the website again. The home page loads, and right at the top of the page is an offer for the Molly doll. Wow, what a coincidence. Exactly what she was interested in. It was almost like American Girl could read her mind. Of course, they can't read her mind, but thanks to her previous website visit and the cookie and the pixels that fly information back and forth, American Girl knows that she visited the Molly pages during her previous visit. So when the page loads, the cookie is retrieved from her computer and the AG service says, aha, this is anonymous potential customer 42337. No, it hasn't matched up yet. That's coming. She was just here a few days ago, and we know she's been lurking around the Molly pages, so let's pop up an offer for something we already know she's interested in. So remember, again, the website doesn't know who she is yet. Of course, all that information from the second session is recorded in the data cube, and we already know that she was potential customer 42337 from her previous cookie, right? Okay, now it's getting cool. Now remember, at this point, the website data warehouse doesn't yet know that anonymous potential customer 42337 is in fact Martha Jones, who made a purchase at the resale store. After all, Martha hasn't yet purchased from the website. So in reading through the Molly offer, Martha sees that if she's a member of the American Girl fan club, she can get special offers and discounts. And all they need is her email address. Well, why wouldn't you do that, right? She enters her email address. By now, Martha's pretty sure she's going to buy a Molly doll for $1,000. So of course she creates her fan club account, enters her email address, and whammo. Aha. Now I know that anonymous user 42337 is in fact Martha Jones. Her IP address, her email, her address, her phone, her credit card, that she purchased a Molly book at our Chicago retail store, and she's visited the Molly doll page a total of 5 times. She really likes the Molly doll. Doesn't that just blow your mind? And this again is just a sampling, folks, of the kind of power that they have in stitching things together and changing that web experience so that when you come to the website, they know what you're interested in. They're not going to offer a female product to a male or a male product to a female or so on and so forth. So it's sort of like reaching back in time if you think about it. Remember in the previous, back here, before American Girl was able to match up the email with the previous data, they still stored that data and said, hey, you know what? This data could be helpful in the future if we can match it up with an actual person. So we're going to store it because we got massive data warehouses. We got plenty of storage space. Let's just put it in there and maybe one day we'll use it. And that's exactly what they do. Once they stitch it together, they now have a bird's eye view. So now when Martha responds to an email, it could be Caroline, yeah. When she responds to an email, clicks on a banner ad, pay-per-click, whatever, all of those experiences, both online and off, are stitched together. So you've got a 50,000-foot view of how Martha is interacting with American Girl. I just think that's just amazing technology. And by the way, this was like, probably 8.5, 9 years ago that they were doing this. And the technology has come a long way since then. They do not have to hit the same server, no. Okay, so thanks to the cookie and the tracking pixel, the website will now recognize when Martha returns, what she's purchased in the past, both online and offline, what she's expressed interest in, and through some database magic, serves up the Molly ad to Martha based on her profile, as well as any other things that she's expressed interest in. All thanks to the mighty pixel. So that's why I call it the mighty pixel, because once you understand how it works, it's some pretty impressive stuff. So. Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up now, again, the lesson is we started out to acquire the right customers, we must understand them. And you can tell that, well, the IP address is only part of the digital signature. So even if your IP address changes, it doesn't matter because you still have a cookie, remember, no matter what IP address you come from, you still have a cookie on your hard drive. So again, to acquire the right customers, we must understand them. And you can see how powerful that is when you really understand Martha, but not just her online, her offline acquisitions, offline behavior, so on and so forth. So that's the end of the presentation. Unless there's any of you that really want to geek out and see what happens on the server side. I actually manage a number of web servers. So if you kind of wanted to see what's happening on the other side of the curtain, I've actually got that pulled up and I can show that with you, but I need
go for it. They love this stuff.
Excellent, excellent. I need to take about a 1-minute break so I can go get something to drink. So if everybody will, actually, let's make it 2 minutes. In exactly 120 seconds, we're going to be back here. So I can go get some water and make sure my cats haven't gotten lost. And I'll be back here in 120 seconds and then we'll proceed and we can open it up for questions. Okay?
Great.
All right, thanks everybody. And if you have to leave, thank you for attending. I really appreciate your time. Okay, Brandy, I'm back. Hello?
I think you made it in under 120 seconds.
Did I? Okay, I didn't actually count, but I was pretty quick about
They're
it.
hearing the Jeopardy theme.
Oh,
Do, 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 do.
okay. All right. So, Brittany, if you can help me, maybe scrolling back through, I see lots of questions coming through all of a sudden here. Maybe you can kind of start from the top, Brittany, and just pick out some questions. And again, I'll stick around for a little while and answer whatever questions. Then again, if you want to see the server side, I've got one more slide.
Why don't you do the server side, and then we'll close it down on live stream, and then we'll open up the after party, and we record all that with all the questions and answers.
Okay.
Cool?
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so again, we're going to talk just a little bit of techie stuff, but these are the kind of fundamental things that a professional online marketer needs to at least have a basic understanding of. Okay, so I put this together for any of you geeks, you propeller heads that wanted to hang around and stick with me. So as you know, if you work with Builderall, we all know what a domain name is, right? And we probably, most of us, or maybe some of you, it's the first time you've registered a domain at GoDaddy or Cheap Names or Network Solutions or any one of dozens of providers. Well, how does the internet know where your website is? Well, we have something called TLD, or top level domain name servers, that basically sync up their databases all the time. So you may have noticed, for example, that when you create a domain, or when you pointed your domain via the DNS to Builderall, it takes a little while. It doesn't happen instantly. And in some cases, like GoDaddy's very quick. I use 1-in-1, which is where I manage several client web servers. Some of them are quicker than others, but in the past, it could be 24 to 48 hours before that DNS entry was updated. It happens a lot more quickly now, but that's basically, so the top level domain name server says, hey, I know where all domains are registered. Okay, it says I know who the registrar is, and I've oversimplified this for any of you real tech heads. You can say, well, that's not technically correct, but again, I'm just trying to give a general idea of how it works. So you have your domain registrar. We'll say GoDaddy, and GoDaddy says, I'm where you register your domain. Okay, so the top level domain name server, mydomain.com, says, aha, that's over at GoDaddy. I'm going to hand that off to GoDaddy. GoDaddy says, I'm where you registered your domain. And then in the domain, as you recall, when you go to connect your DNS to Builderall, you have to go into GoDaddy or your domain provider, and you have to update the DNS server records. And that basically points to the next step. It says, okay, I know where your domain is pointed to, which in most of our cases is now Builderall. After that, then we hit the web server, the Builderall web server, and they probably have, I don't know, they're probably using Amazon Cloud or something like that. They may have virtual cloud servers, or they may have racks and racks of web servers. It says, hey, I'm the server where your domain is, and then it knows where the files and folders are. So let me show you what that looks like on the server side. I'm going to pull over a remote desktop session where I'm actually logged in to a remote server, and this server I think is somewhere in North America. Pull this over here. Okay, so this is one of my servers, and this is Internet Information Services. And I don't know if you know this, but you can actually install Internet Web Services on your desktop, and you could theoretically serve up a website directly from your desktop. I wouldn't recommend it, but it is possible. Okay, so Internet Information Web Services is basically that last piece that connects. I'm trying to see if I can. This last piece here where it says, I'm the server where your domain is, okay, and I'm where your files are. The file and folder structure, folks, is exactly like you're used to on your desktop. So IIS, if I go into one of my clients' websites, and I chose this one, this is just one of several servers. If I go in here and go into Manage Website and go into Advanced Settings, it says, okay, this website, First Choice Imaging, where is it located? It's actually under D, Websites, First Choice Imaging. So if I open this, go into Explorer, okay, and I'm going to go up one level. So I have all the websites on here under folders. This is where all of your files and folders and assets and images and JavaScript and CSS are all stored in a folder, just like they would be on your desktop computer. So the IIS is the last step in that domain name resolution that points all the way down. So none of those servers necessarily, or any of those steps that I showed you, they don't necessarily know. The top level domain name server doesn't know where the files and folders are, but it knows where the domain registrar is. The domain registrar knows where the DNS server is. The DNS server knows where the web server is and which web server. And that web server through IIS knows exactly where the actual physical files and folders exist. Does that make sense to everybody? So I thought you might just enjoy being able to see, how that works. And again, I'll just pull that up, but that's basically the whole thing. And then when you set up a website in IIS, one of the things that you do as one of the last steps is you added a binding. And the binding basically says, okay, this is just a friendly name. I could actually rename that. That has nothing to do with the actual domain name. And then in here is where I actually set up what's called the host name. And all of my sites are set up with both with www and a without. So the IIS server says, hey, if I get a request that comes in for firstchoiceimaging.org/homepage.html, I know exactly where to find it. And then it grabs that file, it assembles all of the CSS, JavaScript, so on and so forth. And the server, just like that Starbucks guy, assembles your sandwich or assembles your coffee and hands it to you over the counter. And this is pretty much the last step. So somewhere in Builderall, as well as all the other web providers, they have something similar to this. It may not be IIS, it may be Unix or something like that. But essentially, it's Ford versus Chevy versus Toyota. They pretty much all work the same way. Make sense? Okay, and I believe that is my last slide. So let's see. Yeah, that's the end of the slideshow. So, okay, Brady, that's it.
That was some powerful stuff. You probably had about 100 or 200 people watching. I'll tell you later.
Nice.
They're still popping on Facebook Live. Yes, guys, if you're registered, get on over here because we're going to go do the after party. We're going to go through all those questions and go through them, kind of quick. I know people will be watching the replay, guys, just so you know where it's at. You're in the Builderall Mastery Summit Facebook group. Look under videos on the left-hand side, and that's where you're going to find this replay. I am going to make sure to type up a guide for you with the links and all the information to make it a little bit easier so you can kind of follow through on the replay. And Facebook, terrific. They're loving it. Thumbs up. Great stuff there. So thank you. This is what you're getting from Facebook.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I do enjoy educating. As I said, I'm not here to sell anything, but I thought maybe this is a way I could shortcut your journey to at least give you some basic understanding of how all the technical stuff works. It'll definitely make you a better marketer.
Wow, I just absolutely love it. It's like the missing piece in the spiritual awakened world, I'll tell you that. Okay, so I'm going to close down Facebook and say thank you for showing up, Facebook. We appreciate it. And then we're going to go do the after party.
And how do we get to the after?